In the modern NBA, running out to a huge early lead is not a guaranteed win, and the Brooklyn Nets and Dallas Mavericks proved that to us last night. With both teams being on the verge of ending their series early, they put on a virtuoso display of scoring, only to see their opponents in the Celtics and Clippers strap on their boots, put on their hard hats, and go to work. The Celtics weren't expected to do much against the Nets without Jaylen Brown, and no one would have been surprised had this series gone to 3-0 in favor of Brooklyn, especially after the first 3.5 minutes of the game that saw the Nets shoot out to a 19-2 run featuring 10 points from James Harden and 6 from Joe Harris. I don't mind the early backcourt pressure by Marcus Smart as Harden brings the ball up, but Tristan Thompson does not call out this ball screen, and the help rotation gets screwed up as both Kemba Walker and Evan Fournier slide over in time to foul and give Harden the and one. In transition, the number one priority for the Celtics should be locating Joe Harris sprinting. It looked like Fournier was in good position to pick him up, but the rim run by Blake Griffin catches the Celtics again not communicating as both Smart and Fournier go to Griffin, and we get a gorgeous step hop into a three. The second the Celtics saw Fournier on an island against Harden, they should have been in full-on help mode. Thompson does not need to be glued to Blake Griffin, who hadn't hit a three in 2 games, but it's really Jayson Tatum whose job it is as the lowest man to rotate over and help. He doesn't budge, and it's a layup. Harden and Durant negotiate as to who gets to attack Tristan Thompson in a mismatch. Harden wins the coin flip, the switch happens immediately on the slip ball screen, and Harden hits Thompson with his patented 3-point step back. On this 3-on-4 fast break, there was no excuse for the Celtics allowing an easy score. Yet, Smart gets caught in no man's land just watching the ball instead of being much closer to the best shooter in the gym, who gets an easy catch and shoot in the corner, and the Celtics are reeling, wondering if this is it. As impressive as that start was, it was nothing compared to what the Mavericks did to the Clippers. I mean, it was such an avalanche that people were already musing about whether Kawhi had packed his bags, ready to find a new team. And the onslaught was led by none other than Clippers nemesis number 1, Luka Doncic, who has elevated his all-time playoff stats on the backs of only the Clippers the past 2 years. Tyronn Lue made some adjustments, putting Reggie Jackson in the starting lineup and having Ivica Zubac guard Kristaps Porzingis instead of Maxi Kleber. And it took no time at all for Luka to go right at Zubac again, hitting a tough fadeaway from 14 feet. There's no secret here, sports fans. Mavs coach Rick Carlisle has clearly mandated that Zubac is the target in the pick and roll, and Kawhi tries to help by showing him a wall to the right, but that just leads to the step back from out top, and now you have to start thinking something is up. With Paul George on him on the sideline out of bounds, unclear why he goes underneath this handoff, yet still allows a switch by Zubac. Good contest, but Luka has flames coming out of his whole body at this point. I had suggested starting Nicola Batum instead of Zubac in the last video, and Lue wastes no time getting him in there alongside the other starters. So now, who are the Mavericks going to target in the pick and roll? Luka favorite Marcus Morris, who does a decent job to contain, albeit all the way to the dotted line, and I understand why Batum would want to help out in the best player in the gym, but he's also the best passer in the gym, and sure, let's see if Hardaway is feeling it early in the game. The answer? He is. The Mavs just pretended that Batum was Zubac, targeting him in the pick and roll, and Luka does the same thing to him again. Check the through the legs into the hop. It's still a bit of a 2-motion shot, and he adds extra arc to get it over the contest, but it just doesn't matter. You know it's bad for the Clippers when Tim Hardaway just comes down the court at one-on-one versus Kawhi of all people, and just pulls in his face for another triple, and this game seems completely out of hand. But as is the case these days in the NBA, you're never out of it when you're down big early. Just check the damage the Celtics and Clippers did over the remainder of their games. For the Celtics, they simply turned to Jayson Tatum, got on his back, and let him carry them with 50 points in 36 minutes, with Marcus Smart pitching in 23 during that same time period. There were a few buckets from Tatum where he let the offense work for him, like this brush screen cross around the high post, getting him downhill in a hurry with Griffin ineffective protecting the rim. But mostly they looked to force Kyrie onto him and let him isolate and attack. 10 of his 16 field goals were off isolations, and they used horns a lot to get the mismatch. Claxton had a chance to scram Kyrie out of there and pick KD up himself, but the Nets defense is not sophisticated enough to do that. They also foolishly do not double in what is clearly going to be a shot by Tatum, who simply turns around and elevates over the much smaller guard to hit the 10-footer. Great job here by Tatum to be physical with Kyrie as he tries to go underneath the screen. There was a chance Kyrie and KD wouldn't switch, but once Kyrie got pinned underneath, the switch has to happen. I like how Claxton comes over to shadow this time. No matter, Tatum just draws the contact on the way up and still hits the 23-footer. The Nets easily could have kept Harden on him and avoided the Tatum-Kyrie mismatch, but out of horns, the Celtics get that switch again. With this pick and roll, KD should have switched back onto Tatum and then Brown could have scrammed Kyrie onto Smart. Instead, they stick with it, and I like how Harden sprints over to double, but it's too little too late as Tatum hits yet another crazy tough shot. Again, there was no need to switch this considering how much room there was between the screener and the ball handler. No double team at all, and Tatum just blows by Irving for a layup and a much needed 9-point cushion. The Nets fell into their usual trap, went down deep in the fourth, resort to hero ball, and I don't necessarily blame them. They're so good at scoring that it feels like no shot is a bad shot. But put enough pressure on them for the first 43 minutes, hold a little bit of a lead, and you can get them to fold, which they did as the Celtics saved their season for at least one more game. The last 40 minutes of the Clippers game was a thorough dismantling of the Mavericks, outscoring them by a whopping 29 points. Of course, they were led by Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, who used the fast break to continually catch the Mavericks out of position, as their defenders kept sinking back to contain the drive and allowing good looks from behind the arc. Terrence Mann's aggressiveness was a big boost to the Clippers all night long, and Hardaway and Finney-Smith had a chance to pinch PG on the catch, but instead keep retreating right to the rim where PG makes a power layup. And PG gets the ball on the left wing. Check what the slightest hesitation does to Finney-Smith, spinning him around, forcing Hardaway to leave Kawhi to stop the ball. That allows the slick pass to the baseline, and when Kawhi is this close without a body on him, forget about it. The key to this series for the Clippers is not getting outscored so much from the three-point line. After the initial insanity from the Mavs, the Clippers kept pace with them, but so completely dominated the paint points that it's no wonder the game wasn't really close by the end. And Kawhi and PG took it upon themselves to simply isolate against whomever was guarding them, forcing matters and continually getting into the paint, where the Mavericks defenders couldn't keep the ball in front, and there was no rotation to support these wayward defenders. While it's just one game, a win like this does wonders for a team that appeared fractured in Game 2. On the flip side, the Mavericks might be shell-shocked after being so convinced this series was over. Not so. They're in for a real dogfight, and I suspect that if the Mavs don't win Game 4, they'll realize that that was their best chance at winning the series.